Afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? Dr. Adenor, I can see you. Good afternoon. Lillian, good afternoon. Oh,
Good afternoon, sir.
How about you?
Good afternoon. Oh, I'm trying to hook up. I'm fine. Hello. 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 Can't hear.
We can hear you, Lillian. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good day, everyone. Nice to be here.
Good day, Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah, same here. Good to see you, ma'am.
Yes. You look
Can you see me, ma?
Yes. Can you see me too?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see you.
I can see you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Am I good to go? So good afternoon.
Yes,
good afternoon, all. Good afternoon. Good morning, depending on your location.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Lillian Ekong. I am a chef by profession. I'm the CEO at Lily's Shops, Calabar, Nigeria, a firm committed to making global impact through food and nutrition. You're all welcome to this webinar series. It is the third of its kind. And the theme is empowering women to break the cycle of malnutrition in Nigeria. This protein challenge is tagged the Nigerian Protein Awareness Campaign, a protein pool media campaign that seeks to create awareness about the prevalence, status, and impact of protein deficiency in Nigeria. The campaign is managed by Mediacraft Associates, a leading PR firm based in Lagos, Nigeria. To kickstart the initiative, Mediacraft Associates commissioned a protein deficiency baseline study designed to empirically determine the current status and dimensions of protein deficiency in Nigeria. The report, the Nigerian Protein Awareness Report, at www.proteinchallengeng.com also sheds light on the food consumption patterns among Nigerians. The monthly Protein Challenge webinar series is just one in a number of dedicated platforms for stakeholders to share ideas on nutrition, protein, and health-related issues. The theme of this Protein Challenge webinar series 3 is empowering women to break the cycle of malnutrition in Nigeria. Prof, can you hear me?
You are making progress.
Okay, ma. Okay, ma. Okay. So this session seeks to draw attention to the urgent need and ways to empower women in the quest to break the cycle of malnutrition in Nigeria, owing to the fact that women are the key decision makers in the choice of meals. So on this panel today, we have eminently qualified women in the academia to the medical and nutrition fields. So I'd like all the participants on board to get set for a ball today. So to deliver the keynote address today, we have Professor Ibiyemi Olayiwola. She is a professor of human nutrition in the Nutrition and Dietetics Department, Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. We also have two panelists with us, Mrs. Josephine Chukwuwike, a certified nutritionist and an entrepreneur. She's passionate about nutrition, especially among children and adolescents. We also have Dr. Adeniran, a clinical and public health physician with experience of over 15 years in the Nigerian health delivery space and health system. So with all of these people on board, I know I'm going to have a good time. Prof.
Thank you.
Prof, ma. Yes, ma. Please, you may take the stage now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Yes, ma.
Thank you very much, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
All protocol being observed. I have quite a number of slides. I'm not going to go through everything, considering the time, so that we can have enough time to have our discussion, to learn from each other. However, I will just take you through the concepts why we are here to be able to empower women on breaking the vicious cycle of malnutrition. And the areas of empowerment that we are going to focus on today is going to be on nutrition empowerment, nutrition education, nutrition information, and food and nutrition, focusing mainly on the symptoms and the problems around children, women, and their protein intake. However, I will just quickly not make an assumption to let us know that malnutrition is a pandemic on its own. It's a pandemic that everybody at any point in time can be affected with, and we should all pay attention to it. Malnutrition can lead to a lot of sicknesses where care is not taken. So really, there is no age group that is really exempted. We may have immunity for a lot of things, but not for nutrition. If our nutritional status is bad, then there is the exposure of undernutrition and there is exposure of overnutrition. So when we talk about malnutrition, we are looking into the areas of various forms of malnutrition, both undernutrition and overnutrition. And for the women, are they eating enough? In Nigeria here, in the last 2 decades, looking into our surveys from various sections, I was able to discover that between 10 and 20%, depending on their zones, are undernourished. And if women are undernourished, what do we do? How do we go about this? As a result, we still need to look into the UNICEF conceptual framework of malnutrition, which has given us the underlying, the basic, the underlying, and the immediate causes. The immediate causes also highlighted the consequences of this malnutrition. And we have short-term consequences and long-term consequences. With the short-term consequences, that can even lead to a lot of sickness. Many times you see a child falling sick, you don't know that the child does not have enough food, there is no enough protein. There is, even where there are proteins, the child has not taken the rich protein that will supply other nutrients into the body. Because when you take protein from a rich source, you have enough amino acids, you have micronutrients. And then the child is able to grow without any sickness or fear of diseases. And then the long-term consequences are there, which can even lead to economic productivity. And that is why we are calling all our leaders today to please put a lot of attention to nutrition so that women can be properly empowered, educated, and understand the fact that without nutrition, there cannot be any economic growth. And with nutrition, we can increase. It's not only when we have the money, but when we put the money in the right place to educate, to empower, and to inform, because information is power. We need to inform our women because they are key decision makers on breaking the circle of malnutrition. Now, how do we, what do we do? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Everybody's hands must be on deck. What do we do? What do we do for our women so that they can be educated, so that they can be healthy, so that the family can be strong, then the society can move forward economically, financially, integrity. Because without nutrition, you have even the intellectual is affected. You have children going out of school, the attention span is low, there is no peace, there is violence. There's a lot of people keep asking me, we are always hearing that about hunger. Then somebody say, what is hunger really? It's also undernutrition. Hunger is undernutrition, which women can break at home. They can satisfy the family. And when we say a hungry man is an angry man, the violence can be reduced when people are satisfied. And as a result, we are able to see that from the analysis, we can see that a lot of times the hunger is psychological. It's not only physiological, but it is more of psychological discomfort. When there is no food at home, everybody's eyes becomes red, and then the woman will be running helter-skelter. So what do we do for this woman? From the foundation, let us look at what is going on. How can we break the intergenerational cycle of poor growth by nutrition? I want to submit to everyone today that the problem of malnutrition starts right from conception, even when the woman does not know she's pregnant. When the woman does not know she's pregnant, she's there, and then she's still thinking of other things. Meanwhile, their malnutrition may take place. She has the power to break it, even right in the fetus, by taking enough diets, enough adequate diets, enough energy-rich food, especially the local ones, and then the most important ones, which is protein. She can take enough adequate protein-rich food, both from animal sources and from legumes. Legumes, especially cowpea, and then we will still discuss more on even the beans and soya beans, which more or less a lot of people have been hearing about, and some of them don't even know what to do with it because of some of the taboos around the soya beans. But right now, the awareness is coming up, and then a lot of people were already telling them to look into soya beans. They don't need to have all the money in the world. before they get enough protein, even as a pregnant or as a lactating mother. Because when you have a child that by birth it is low, the tendency from research work is that if she's a girl, she will grow up as a small adult woman. You can see it on the screen. She grew up as a small adult woman, and then that cycle will continue. But if the girl child comes up healthy, good height, then the malnutrition at that level will break, because she will have good cervical to be able to carry her own pregnancy properly with a child, and then will be educated to have enough. So looking into the circle again.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
You have 2 more minutes. You have 2 more minutes. Just prompting you.
Okay. So she can break the cycle as she's feeding, exclusive breastfeeding. She can use her power to feed exclusively so that the child will grow up optimally. And then she can use her power to make good selection of adequate diets. Once a woman is educated, then she can overcome and have power for complementary food, and then use the power to even support the community. She can use the power to educate her other children. There are so many stories we have heard about the power of the grandmother. The power of the grandmother that used her power and her age and her seniority to control the whole community, to make sure that there's no malnutrition in that community. So I'm calling everyone today that let's all hands on desk to support women and educate them, inform them, and authorize from the woman in the kitchen at the village, to the woman that is seated in the presidency. We are calling all of you to come together and break the cycle of malnutrition. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, one thing has stayed with me just now, Prof, just listening to you. I would never have thought that malnutrition could be termed as a pandemic. It makes it a very serious matter. And another very cogent point I picked from you is that there is no immunity for malnutrition. Yes. And so at this juncture, I'd like to welcome Dr. Adeniran just to hear her take after hearing from our Prof. Please, ma, Dr. Adeniran, what is your take?
Right.
On our theme today?
Okay, can you hear me?
You're welcome, ma. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So, Prof, you could, if you could see me, I was nodding vigorously to many of the things that Prof said, and that's because there are many things that in my presentation are very similar to what Prof said. So I started my career as a clinical physician, and the focus of a clinical physician, you see the patient only in the hospital. But as I grew in my career, I realized that the factors that was influencing how well my patient does in front of me in the hospital are related to what happens outside the hospital. And then when I started my career in public health, we started to study something called the social determinants of health in an individual. So what are the ways in which this individual can either do very well in the hospital or not do very well? So my slide is up. I didn't think that it would be. But so very quickly, social determinants of health of an individual are influenced by a couple of factors. And I'm quickly going to go really quickly through them. This is very short. Income and social status, employment and working conditions, education and literacy, childhood experiences, the physical environment, the social support coping skills, healthy behavior, access to health services, biology and genetic endowment, gender, culture, race, or racism. All of these come together to determine who will be a healthy individual and who will be a less than healthy individual. But if you go down now to in the household, what determines the health of a household? And very similar to what Prof said, and the role of the woman. The social determinants of health in a child or on a household are the education or literacy of the household's mother or the caregiver. So depending on how educated and exposed the mother or the caregiver in that house is, determines what the health status or the health outcome of that house is going to be. Also, the childhood experiences, also very related to the mother in the house. Healthy behaviors, also again passed on by the mother in the house. The culture, to an extent, can be determined by the mother, but we're going to speak about culture and what is the role of, which place does protein play in the African culture, since we're talking about Nigeria. And
Seems like we're having some network issues there.
Yes.
Hello?
I think we
Can
can
you
hear
hear
you now.
me?
Go on, I can hear you now. Go on, go on.
Go on, go on. Go on. Hello?
Go on, please. Go on. We can hear
Hello?
you.
We can hear you.
Doctor, we can hear you.
Yes.
right,
Go
so
on.
I'm going on. So the
Go
household
on,
health
go on.
and well-being, abbreviated, around the things that we'll talk about: the income level, the physical environment, maternal literacy, and access to health information and services. Extremely important. So the household health is determined by next slide. Okay, so how do we design nutritional policies to engage with the household? So nutritional policies that are targeted at the home can actually be targeted at these factors that I mentioned: the maternal literacy, which is specific and contextual, access to health information and services. Income level, it's not very easy to modify income level, but this can be adjusted per intervention. And what do I mean? Some interventions are expensive. If you say, for instance, the household should sleep under a malaria net, it can be expensive because you expect all the households to buy a net. For immunizations and vaccinations, immunizations are actually, in fact, expensive. They are highly subsidized, which is the reason why they're able to reach all of us. Iodization of salt, access to proteins, ORS in diarrhea. So while we cannot increase the overall income of the household, we can subsidize interventions so that we can either make these interventions cheap to be able to, for the household to be able to afford it, or we make these interventions free for the household to be able to afford it. And that is the way we can affect the income level. So why do we target protein within a nutrition policy? It's essential to proper growth and development. And there are some theories that say that many cultures in Africa, we did not prioritize protein in our diet, and this is because we were farmers. So we needed food that gave us energy. So our focus was on carbohydrates. We were farming, we were fishing. Those are energy consuming activities. So often we would eat foods that were rich in starches, which gave us a certain kind of calories that enable us to do energy and to perform our energy tasks. But so the theory says that in many cultures in Africa, many of us did not reach our growth potential. And you'll see that if you look at even pictures from 100 years ago or 50 years ago, when they go take pictures in African villages, something that was very clear was there wasn't a lot of very tall people. And, some schools of anthropologists have said that while they were relatively healthy, many of them did not reach their highest growth potential. Oftentimes you will see that the skin of the children wasn't necessarily very bright. We didn't necessarily have the best kind of eyes, and we didn't necessarily have the best kind of hair. And this was because we thought that African cultures did not prioritize protein. And so that leads me to discuss a bit of how protein malnutrition exists in the different age groups differently. In children under 5, you can see mild cases, which can be an increased propensity to infections, abnormalities in skin or eye health, and poor hair development. And then you have the more extreme conditions of protein energy malnutrition, like kwashiorkor, marasmus, and so it can range from mild to extreme. Apart from children, even in adults, what tends to happen is adults who do not consume proteins very well will exhibit the same amount of poor infection resistance. And that's because we're unable to mount the body response to infections. Again, another thing is if you have protein energy malnutrition in children, it has also been linked to a higher risk of non-communicable disease in adulthood. There's a link of the study that has been done that children who don't eat proteins very well in childhood, even when they become adults, they are more likely to have many of the non-communicable diseases. Proteins and the immune system. I'm going to link this because we're all talking. 2 more minutes, great. We're going to talk about linking it to COVID, for instance. Protein is the building blocks of the immune system is proteins. The antigen and the antibody relationships that occur in the body basically has its foundation in how much protein that person has in the body. So a diet that is poor in essential proteins will increase the risk of that individual being susceptible to many infections, especially viral infections. Next slide. So I'm just gonna, so having given that background there, so the real question now is, how do we determine the cost of protein nutrition? Does it hurt us economically? And the answer to that is yes. On an individual level, somebody that doesn't consume the right amount of protein will have increased costs because you have direct costs of when the person falls ill a lot, you're unable to go to work and earn all your maximum income because you have sick days or you have off days. And then you have failure to reach your absolute growth potential because you have potential loss of income. There are people who could have been sportsmen or sportswomen, but because they're unable to reach their maximum growth potential, they're unable to tap in to that, and that is a loss. On the social level, you have poor educational outcomes. Prof said something about learning in a child. Learning in a child is directly affected to how much protein that child has. So on a social level, on an individual level, protein malnutrition will cost us. The last point I have to say, and I have a few seconds just to say this, is nutritional bargain shopping. What do we mean by nutritional bargain shopping? The woman in the home, the caregiver, is also always looking out for a bargain. And bargain does not necessarily mean cheap. Bargain means that what she wants to buy has to have the value, a bang for buck. So these are the factors that the woman always puts behind her head. Number one, affordability, knowledge about the item, availability of the item in the environment, and the overall income. So when we want to design interventions, we must intervene at any of the points of her nutritional bargain shopping so that we make it easy for the woman to either A, afford the item that we're talking about, know about the item, make that item available in the environment, or to now affect the overall income. And so that is, how do we then improve the chances of the woman able to do this? Okay, and that's the domestic implementer is the key to the delivery of nutritional policies. The choices that they make are determined by literacy, income, adding up to bargain shopping. So the 5 main points about bargain shopping, the food source has to be healthy, known, present, and affordable. So whatever we're thinking, if we're able to capture those 4 items and those 4 factors, then we're home. And that is my take on this matter.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Doctor, I'm afraid it seems like a Herculean task on women to make this happen. But I'm sure women have what it takes. Women are wired. They are wired for big things. So I'm sure every woman who's participating today will take home something and, make it work. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Josephine, one of our panelists today.
Thank you very much. I hope you can
You're
all
welcome,
hear me.
ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Yes,
madam.
ma'am.
Good afternoon,
Good
Prof.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and all protocols duly observed, please. I love the way this webinar started with.
Madam Josephine, is she there?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go
I
on,
can hear
please.
you clearly.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. I love the way the webinar started, and Prof gave us a very beautiful background to malnutrition. She defined it and told us the situation. And then our dear Dr. Adeniro has given us an insight on what we should be doing and what the situation really looks like in case of an intervention. So I want to further give us more information on how we can actually practically help women, empower women to help the situation of malnutrition in Nigeria. Of course, like Prof said, malnutrition is a pandemic. It's affecting everybody. But we have two sides to the issue of malnutrition, the overnutrition and the undernutrition. But here in Africa, and especially Nigeria, undernutrition is still a very big issue, although among the adults and middle-aged, overnutrition is beginning to raise up its ugly head in overweight, diabetes, and obesity among middle-aged and adults because of our diet, which is mostly starchy foods. Our staples are mostly starchy foods all over the country. However, to help the issue of undernutrition, we need to look into what women are actually feeding people in their households. And like Prof said, the issue of undernutrition starts even before a woman takes in. So a middle-aged woman, nutrition through the life cycle, I'm trying to break that down now. The middle-aged woman who is, of course, sexually active, either married or not, has to note her kind of diet, especially for folic acid. If you're looking to make a baby, so if your folic acid intake is inadequate and your protein intake amongst other fruits and vegetables is inadequate, you're likely going to have issues in the first 3 months of pregnancy. A woman who doesn't have adequate nutrition has an issue with proper gestational period, and issues like neural tube defects may occur with the fetus if care is not taken. At the point of pregnancy, of course, a woman should eat adequately based on her correct BMI and doctor's prescription for her nutritionist, of course. So you eat adequate carbohydrates, adequate protein, adequate fats and oil and all of that. The issue of balanced diet in the layman language comes to play. However, in the world of nutrition, we call it now adequate diet. So your diet is based on your BMI, your age, your sex, and all of that. Okay, so women are encouraged also to eat adequately and also to breastfeed exclusively. Now, that child that is born to you is coming with, nothing and a clear mind and no choices at all, and it's just depending on you and everything that you have eaten or you eat to survive. So exclusive breastfeeding means when you feed a child for the first 6 months of life with breast milk only, aside water. So no water, only breast milk, except the child has been prescribed some medicines for proper development or if there's any health issue. So when exclusive breastfeeding is achieved, the child has higher chances. Now, after exclusive breastfeeding, we discover that during complementary feeding, children tend to relapse who have been properly breastfed exclusively because women do not sometimes give adequate complementary foods. Now, complementary foods don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be tin foods. They don't have to be imported foods. We have our locally available legumes, which we can add to some other seeds to make available these complementary foods. And I'll give some examples. Okay, everybody knows that we give children pap after the first 6 months, but you don't just give plain pap. You give pap with milk. You can add soya bean, you can add crayfish, you can add granules, what we call Tom Brown. It's a new mixture. It's not so new. People know about it. So you add Tom Brown to the pap to give the child a healthier meal than just pap. In fact, sometimes women give pap without milk. Now, even if you don't have money to buy milk, you can actually make available all these little legumes in your immediate environment to make pap for your child, and add to, of course, continual breastfeeding up to 2 years. That is what is recommended. Now, after that, the child is growing between that age of 2 years to 5 years. Adequate feeding should be given to that child, because between the ages of 0 to 5 years, a child's brain is developed to almost 75%. So a child who is not well fed will have issues with learning in future. So cognitive development is very important for children under 5. Now, women may complain sometimes that their issue is that they don't have money, or they don't have enough money to buy the kind of food that they want. Now, how do we empower women? First off, we should ensure that women are employed. Those who are learned should try to get an employment to support income in the home. Because if you don't have purchasing power, I mean, how would you get about all of this? Another thing is, those who cannot or do not get employment because of the economic situation should learn small scale businesses. The little amount of money you get into your purse per week or per month can help with acquiring more nutritious food, and so lifting up the burden from just the man in the home. And of course, farming in the rural areas. Home gardening is very important. You don't have to farm to sell in the market. Home gardening. So we advise that people use the back of their houses, plant vegetables, plant beans. It doesn't have to be so much, just for you and your family. Nutrition education is also important on adequate diet for members of the family. Like I said earlier, the age, the sex, the gender, and the BMI of everyone in the home is important in meal planning. And of course, in the home, the woman serves her husband and her children before thinking of herself. So it's daddy that gets the bigger meats or the larger portion of food. Meanwhile, children actually need this more than middle-aged and adults. So women should know that we pay more attention to our children and our teenage and ourselves, even before the men. This is not being selfish, but this is just saying that women and children under 5 are actually the ones who are at risk. We are the vulnerable population, as it may be. And also, before I end it here, I'd like to also say that the method of preparation is very important. Sometimes food is prepared, and before the end of the cooking process, all the vitamins and all the nutrients are lost. So proper cooking procedures should be encouraged. For example, when you make your vegetables, you shouldn't cook for more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes on fire. And you shouldn't cut your vegetables before you wash them, because you are increasing the surface area and allowing the vitamins to go off in the water. The vitamins that are, of course, water soluble. So I want to end it here and say that women have a lot of role to play, and we can start by knowing the right thing to do, and of course, receiving support from the men, especially as regards taking care of our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Josephine. Thank you so much. Thank you. I like that. I like the selfish. I like the selfish side. Women having to take care of themselves, you know, because they have a major role to play in making sure that nutrition is given the attention it needs in homes. So I'd like to have Prof back just before I come back to Dr. and Mrs. Josephine with their questions, since Prof has been waiting for a while. Welcome back, Ma.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ma. Okay, Ma, please. Yes, Ma, I can hear you clearly. So I have this question for you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Malnutrition is being touted as a real health challenge. In fact, a big problem in Nigeria today. Ma, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, ma. So please, ma, what do you have to say about this? I know you came up with your address and you said a number of things, but I'd just like you to shed more light on this.
It's a big problem. And you can see all my member of panelists, they had highlighted in the same direction that malnutrition is a big problem no age is spared. When we talk about undernutrition, up till now, we cannot say Nigeria is free of undernutrition. For under 5 children, majority of our under 5 children are stunted. There is no zone that is free of stunting, wasting, or even underweight. There is no zone in Nigeria. And in Nigeria, one could see that even though we manage to reduce wasting, which is an extreme and severe undernutrition, but we are yet to reduce stunting. At the northern zone, it's now, well, a little bit down, but then it's no nutritionist is comfortable because it's still more than 30%. And for the women, like I said, women of childbearing age between 15 and 49 years, they are still underweight. At least in all the zones, at least 10% of the women in all the zones are underweight, which means they are below normal body mass index. If the weight is too low, definitely they may find it difficult to break the cycle of malnutrition when it comes to intergenerational malnutrition. And then talking about malnutrition even in the adults, we have overnutrition. They are battling with overnutrition, which already is leading to hyperlipidemia. Some of them are already at risk of cardiovascular disease, the development of non-communicable disease like diabetics. The statistics can show us. And so it's not an overstatement to say that no age is spared when we talk about malnutrition.
Okay, Prof. Thank you. I see that the common denominator here is empowerment for the woman. So please, yes. I'd like to have Dr. Adeniro back.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, doctor, please. The woman or the women empowerment as regards our theme, okay. Yes, is important to me. So I'd like you to say more about this because I'm sure a number of people want to know how they can be empowered or how they can go about it.
Okay. Right, so that's thank you very much, and I'm very happy to take that. So we already established that the woman makes the nutritional decision in the house, and empowering her to be able to make the best nutritional policies in the house. You can have a short-term or a long-term. Think about it, the woman is already primed to be a nutritional bargain shopper. And like I said, she takes the money, goes to the market and wants to make the best choice. Oftentimes though, that best choice is now the cheapest choice, which is not necessarily the best one. So how do we key in to the woman who already wants to be a nutritional bargain shopper? She's looking for something that is affordable and has value. So like I said, whatever we do has to now be, we increase the woman's knowledge and literacy, and then we can also increase our income. And on the long term, of course, like one of my co-panelists said, being able to increase the income of a woman means that we have to get more women employed. And that is a long-term strategy because if we want to talk about the employability, we have to intervene at the level of education and then opportunities that are open to women. So that's definitely on the policy table. How do we have more women have more money? But then again, if we're intervening in nutrition, what's helpful about nutrition is that it's one of the easier interventions to deliver. Once we identify the thing that is missing in our nutritional space, we can now determine to artificially increase the income of women by making that item cheap and affordable. So how do we subsidize, for instance, in the context of this conversation, how do we subsidize protein at the level of the household so that it is available to the household? In that case, we might be doing some inorganic things, which, for instance, like I said, how do we, if we're looking at, so there are two main sources of protein in the house. And we talk about animal protein and plant protein. Animal protein is expensive because it's expensive to produce. Whether you're talking about fishes or beef or chicken, it's expensive to produce. So it already comes at a cost. You can decide to make animal protein cheaper by subsidizing animal protein, or you can also decide to subsidize plant protein. That way, what you're actually doing is increasing the income of the woman without necessarily giving her a job. So her income remains the same, but what she can afford with that same income increases because we're making that item cheap and affordable, and then we're giving her knowledge about it. So like I said, that item has to be known, affordable, available, and then we have to increase our knowledge about it. So that's the easiest way, in my mind, to empower women to be able to make better nutritional choices.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Mrs. Josephine, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, please, I'd like you to respond to a question from our Q&A.
Okay.
And it is, what has prevented women from breaking the cycle of malnutrition in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. That's quite a broad question because it's not like we wake up one day and say, oh, the cycle has been broken by the women of Nigeria. No, it doesn't happen that way. We deal with statistics and then over time research. However, to answer that question, I would say that more women need to know. Thankfully, we are on course with exclusive breastfeeding, and people are getting more knowledge and knowing the reason why it's important and seeing the results. And we need to also inform them. Thank God for this kind of webinar we're having now. We expect more women to know. So when more women know what to do and know why they do what they do. So why are you eating beans? Why do you have to eat soybean? Funnily enough, I got to understand that many women believe that soybean is just a plant that you process to add to children's food as a complementary food. They don't know that you can actually consume soybean as an adult in different forms, either soya oil, soya milk as a refreshing drink, or processed, in form of powder to make pap and all of that. So more women need to know. And like Dr. Adeniran said, more women need to be employed. I don't want to go so much to women issues, but you see, women need to have equal opportunities for employment. And like she said, women also need to be empowered. Okay, so women can farm, women can have home gardens, but the government needs to come down to the grassroots and say, okay, for the women in this area or for this state, I am making this land available, or I'm giving these free seeds or these fertilizers for you to grow these crops. So if you cannot produce chicken at the back of your house, cannot afford the feed, or you cannot buy fish from the market, you can plant them. You can, you can make soybean, you can make other vegetables available to you so that the little money your husband gives you, you can allow you to buy fish and milk and everything, just like she said. So women should be told what to do and why they do what they do. So I think the issue of pushing from the point of breastfeeding for women has actually gone a long way. So can we now say, okay, after doing breastfeeding exclusively, don't now cancel all your efforts. You have to continue. So instead of saying that that is the man of the house, eat one full egg, can you give that child who is 3 or 4 years the full egg and let daddy take nothing or half? Because that full egg goes a long way in helping him. He is still repairing cells and producing new cells in the body, but that is just maintaining. So he doesn't need it so much. So we need to know what to do and why. The long-term effects, like if you look at the conceptual framework of malnutrition, you see that there are the basic causes, the immediate causes, and the third one I'm trying to face it now. And there are the long-term consequences. The immediate ones are just infections and diseases, and then your mind will be like, okay, fine. If he's sick, we'll take it to the hospital, you'll be fine. But how about on the long run? It affects our productivity as a nation. Some people don't think well, and they don't know what to do at their age and class because they were malnourished. Stunting is already a sign that somebody may not be so intellectually, sound. I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to be insulting, but that is the truth. So I hope I've been able to attend to that question.
Yes, you have.
It's a gradual thing.
Yes, you have. Thank you very much. Hello, Prof. Prof, please, I'd like you to talk more about malnutrition becoming a pandemic in Nigeria and how and what are the ways that we can stop this pandemic.
Ma, you are muted. We can't hear you. You are muted. You need to unmute your mic.
I said, I used the word to even call the attention of our investors, because it seems like our investors, if they don't hear pandemic, they will not even think anything is happening around. So it's a pandemic that anybody can be hit set at any time. And it's not that it's limited to Africa or any other country. Even in developed world, they have overnutrition. They are going through a lot of things where the drugs cannot even assist them any longer because they are going through a lot of hidden hunger, micronutrient deficiencies. And when you look at the statistics of people die of either under or overnutrition and calculate per day, it's like a plane crash. So we have to really, really put our investors into this. They have to put money, they have to put time, all hands must be on deck to remove, why we remove malnutrition? Look, from where I came from, they used to have this proverb that when you remove hunger in anything that is happening to you, then there's no problem again for you. There's no poverty again for you. You can be called a rich man. You can be called a wealthy person. So when we remove malnutrition in our society, we have removed poverty. We have removed violence. We have removed insecurity. No, all the money we are spending on security, turn it around and spend more on nutrition and food security and call me to come and investigate whether there's an impact. I will tell you that you have removed underdevelopment. So it's not an overstatement. And I will say it anywhere. It's just because we are not looking to the statistics. Compare the statistics of what everybody running around today and when you are well nourished. Some people ask me, what should they do in this pandemic? I said, I don't have any new message concerning nutrition. Go back to what we've been saying before. Go back to what we've been telling you before. There is no new information. If you are well nourished, you will be immune. You will be fully immune. But because of undernourishment, any air that blows into their nose, they are already falling. A lot of micronutrient deficiency are going.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I will continue later.
Thank you, ma'am.
I will continue.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
If you can't, medical.
Dr. Deniro, please.
I will continue in another radio station. I will still continue to talk. I will not keep quiet even now. After now, I will still talk. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. We'll have you back soon. Dr. Deniro.
Yes.
Okay, doctor, according to the Nigerian Protein Deficiency Report, 58% of sampled institutional providers claim that intake of protein by Nigerians is quite insufficient. How would you evaluate this statement from your experience?
Okay, so from my experience, I would say that that is just about right, because I practice in Nigeria. So that is the patient pool that I have seen. And I said there are some protein energy malnutrition can range from mild to severe. And in children, for instance, I have seen across the entire spectrum. From mild into you can always tell from mild into the child's growth development. You can see what the skin or the eyes or the hair looks like. And then that gives you an inkling to what is going on with this child. I can even at that time begin to predict about this child's learning abilities or this child's household background abilities because of what I'm seeing. And I practiced in a high income setting. I practice at the community level, which often is a low income setting. And I can see the difference between a high income setting and a low income setting. And I can see the difference in what the children look like. In adults, it's not so obvious, because if you see a stunted adult, it's really difficult to be able to determine that this is a stunted adult. You probably think this is this person's growth potential. But there are other ways in which you can see that this adult is not quite well nourished with protein, either from childhood or as an adult. And that's number one, the propensity to fall ill. There are some patients that you see them just about every 2 months. Is malaria again? I have typhoid. I have stomach ache again. I have this again. And if you remove a chronic immune deficiency from that person, if this person doesn't have a chronic illness that is responsible for this sporadic, falling ill, then you have to look at what is this person's baseline, what's this person's immune status. And like I said, his immune status is largely determined by how much protein you eat as a child, because entire immunity, the antibodies, the antigen, like I said before, is actually made up of interaction of proteins. So if this person is falling ill a lot, then you begin to guess this person has some kind of malnutrition. Person can feel, oh, but I eat a lot. I eat 4 times a day, but what is that person eating? So I'm going to go with, I would even go far. And then when you see those patients, you ask them questions, you say, what are you eating? And then you try and, click further into what they're eating. And then you find out that the undernutrition is significant. I don't even want to call what the adults do overnutrition, because for me, nutrition is a very sacred word. They overeat. Nourishment is a sacred word to me. And I'd like us to be very clear about what eating as opposed to nourishment is. So I don't use that word, overnutrition. I don't use it. But that's personal to me, because there's a difference between a well-nourished adult or somebody who is overnourished, someone who's just eating calories. So I'm going to answer your question. I very much agree with that statement that says that about 58% are undernourished with protein. And that's because when they interface with me at the clinical level, I can see many of the effects.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mrs. Josephine, please.
Yes, please.
Some people have concerns. I remember you said something about soya beans.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
What about the anti-nutritional and toxins concerns in soya bean? There are people who think that such concerns exist. What do you have to say about this, please?
And therefore they won't consume it. Is that the side you're coming from?
Yes, please.
It depends. Okay, thank you very much. It depends on its form. Like I mentioned, the soya bean powder. Okay, for one, when I was pregnant, I used to take tea a lot, and then I got advice from a friend of mine that, oh, soya bean added to your tea, it tastes good. Apart from tasting good, it helps you increase the production of folate in your body. And then you're pregnant, you need to produce that enough for your children. So if you don't want to take soya bean powder, You could take soya oil. There's soya oils available. If you don't want to take soya oil, you can take soya milk. The processing itself takes care of the anti-nutrients. So it depends on the processing method that you involve. And then it doesn't have to be soybean. If you say you don't want soybean, it doesn't have to be soybean. There's beans. There are other legumes. There's this green peas that we eat in our salad. Some people boil that a little, steam it a bit, and they eat it as meals. So it doesn't have to be soybean. It can be crayfish. It can be groundnuts. So ensure that you're eating the right thing. Okay, as far back as secondary school, now this is the importance of nutrition education. As far back as secondary school, I did home economics, and I was told back then during practical that your main dish should actually be your protein dish, and the complement is the carbohydrate. So if you say, for example, I'm eating rice and stew, it should be I'm eating fish stew with rice. I'm eating chicken stew with, yam. So you are actually eating potato as your main dish. Now, in the real sense of it, let's be sincere, in Nigeria, we eat protein as an encouragement, as a reward for consuming the main heap of starch. So if we can't get chicken, let's get egg. If we can't get egg, let's do beans, and let's be creative. Sometimes it gets boring. Can women take the pain of doing akara chips, normal akara, or moi moi, beans and stew, porridge beans? It's not the same. Oh, today we're eating beans, so mommy, I won't take beans. And children may reject the beans because we keep eating it the same way. Introduce variety to the diet. So like I said before, it doesn't have to be soybean. And you say, oh, soybean is more available in the north. There are other available proteinous foods in the east. For example, bambara nuts, which they call okpa. It is highly proteinous also. So you can make that into the food and then eat. So we also have, I think what they call, I'm trying to remember them. I think breadfruit. Yes, ukwa. You can do ukwa also. And then in the southwest, in every portion of Nigeria, you have available food. So you don't have to break the bank every time. And then it behoves of us women to take the pain of being creative when we are making our meals. So some of your children may not embrace beans, but they may embrace soya bean. And if you have an issue with allergy or something, for example, my husband doesn't eat boiled egg, but he eats it fried. And then there are other options. So let's take what works best for us. So a no is not an excuse. Thank you.
So it's a question of, or it's a matter of what works. There's always that protein that will go down well with any individual. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Prof Ma.
Yes.
How big a role?
Yes, I'm here.
How big a role, if you can hear me?
Okay.
How big a role can protein play in the fight against malnutrition, taking into cognizance Nigeria's cultural food practices?
We all know protein is very essential when it's coming to the fight of malnutrition in different forms. Rich protein diets will supply both essential and non-essential amino acids. When the amino acids are enough, then they can assist. For children, it will help in their growth. Because when a child is growing, like Dr. Adelina said, a lot of symptoms disappears. You hardly see a child that is growing properly under enriched food like protein of which we refer to as protein of high quality. The child will not suffer any of the classes of malnutrition, moderate, mild, severe, and in terms of energy, there will be enough energy too. Because when we talk about high protein, high quality protein food, it contains both the energy, the essential amino acid, the micronutrients. And that is for children, even for the woman, for the pregnant women. Sorry. There will be enough of the amino acid to support the growth of the fetus, and then to help in the maintenance, to help in the repairs for the adults. And like I said, for the overnourished adults, they can use some of these high protein food, like soya beans, like like Josephine has said, soya beans, cowpea, beans for life. There was a time we had that campaign in South Africa. Beans for life, where you can put beans, just take any form, in any form, akara, moi moi, anything. Just make sure that in 24 hours to take beans. And they discovered that a lot of people were able to get out of all kinds of non-communicable diseases. It was reduced. I said, wow, we did not even know that we can have this type of enrichment in Africa. We have our resources that can support the production of beans, cowpea, soya beans. As a result, we can easily break we can easily make it in the battle of malnutrition, both as in form of protein, in form of amino acid, in form of minerals, in form of vitamins. If you refer to my article on Medical's website, you will get more details, because we were able to look into all the areas of protein challenge, and in terms of how protein has been helping to reduce malnutrition, both for the children, for the adults, and even for lactating and pregnant women. So looking into the protein-rich diet as at the center of malnutrition, we can go a long way in Nigeria if there's more investments in terms of education, awareness of this nature, information at all levels. What I mean at all levels, that everybody can hear the language of their own. Nigeria is a country, then within Nigeria, all the nations within Nigeria, Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, everybody, let us translate, let them hear. We are not going to be talking to ourselves alone. Let's not be selfish. Let other people hear us, and then they will follow us, because we need to remove malnutrition, and then we can remove poverty, and then we can live at peace, and which is already more than 50% of the SDG goals.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So that being said, I'm no longer worried about kicking this pandemic out.
Don't worry about that.
We can do it together. We can do it together. We can do it together.
Whatever.
Thank you, ma'am.
When you are well nourished,
thank you.
We are above it, because nutrition has its own power to fight against disease, because it boosts our immunity. And even the fight of COVID is not outside nutrition. They still have to nutrition.
Related.
That is it.
Okay, ma, thank you. Dr. Daniel, please. Someone wants you to rewind on the inorganic things.
Okay. So I use the word inorganic because when you're talking about access to anything, whether it's access to a food or access to information, there's demand and supply side. So when I say inorganic, I mean in which ways do you intervene? So if we have a problem where the demand and supply for information is, the demand and supply of income is not very balanced. Organic means increasing the income of that person to be able to afford it. That is that person actually being able to be empowered to buy that thing. And in this context, we're talking about protein. Inorganic means that we're going to the supply side and then we are intervening there. So that while this person is not any richer in the real sense of it, but the item has become cheaper. So that's inorganic in that sense. So you can say artificial. So basically what we're doing is we're fiddling with the forces of demand and supply. And one is we allow the person to be able to demand more, and that often is income. Or we can go and intervene at this point of supply, and supply can mean making it plentiful or making it cheaper. Either way, what we want is for access. So that is what I meant by inorganic.
Okay. I've seen a number of questions from our audience, so please, we're expecting more questions. Our panelists are happy to respond to these questions. They're not tired, so please, more questions can keep coming in. I'll channel one to Mrs. Josephine now. Mrs. Josephine, please. Everybody is used to seeing or knowing fish, meat, beans, and that's all about proteins. You know, that knowledge gap is should be bridged. So can we be told more about protein foods, like other protein foods that we may not even know of, or we do not even know about?
Okay, thank you very much.
I never have thought breadfruit was protein. I didn't know that. I just learned that now.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll start by saying that it's good that we look at our immediate environment, foods that are natural to us. We'll find our protein from there. Cheese is made from milk and it's proteinous. Yogurt is proteinous. And when I mean yogurt, I mean natural yogurt. So those of them in the north who have cows, they milk cows and then they sell the milk. And then some of them do fura. It's proteinous. Wara in Yoruba land is proteinous. So if you say it's not soybean, it's not beans, it's not fish, it's not meat, it's not egg, then even some other legumes have protein. Although granite is fat and oil, but it still has some protein in it. Egusi that we eat is fats and oil, but it still has some protein in it. So even beans that we say is proteinous, it still has a lot of carbohydrates in it. So it's important that we don't just look for one particular source. We also complement plant protein and animal protein, and then complement instead of eating just beans. You can do rice and beans. It makes it more available to you. So look at your food in your environment. Like I said, okpa earlier, I said ukwa for the Easterners, and then I mentioned warantofa. And then these things, it's better you actually produce them in your homes, in your houses locally, instead of buying, because you don't know what has gone wrong during processing. And then to avoid infections from, sometimes you buy food that was supposed to be fermented food, of course, for you, and then you end up seeing that it went wrong somewhere, somehow, and then you buy and eat, and it affects you. And when you do it yourself at home as a woman, you know the nutritional content. You can still vouch for it that, I made this wara, I made this local cheese myself. And then by the time you make it once or twice and you see the improvements in the health of your children, you can now begin to say, okay, I can make for my neighborhood, I can make for my streets and sell. And then it can fetch me some money. So like I said earlier, you just look within your environment, aside the normal staples. Because someone would even say to me recently, like we don't have any food in Nigeria again. After yam and rice and beans, and then maybe we're talking about spaghetti and indomie, I don't know what else to cook. But now if you sit down and actually look at your environment, you discover that you have variety of food to actually get. And then our roots and tubers are basically starch. So there's no protein. Now, if you want to be sure, there's little or negligible, very low protein in those ones. But look at whole foods, whole grain, and our legumes. You would get our local legumes. You would get more protein from those ones.
Thank you, Mrs. Josephine. Prof, please, are there standard indicators for measuring malnutrition in children that are less than 2 years?
Hello.
Prof, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, there are standard indicators. We talk about a child that is sunset. We will know that from the height for age of that child. The child will be short compared to his or her age. Is one indicator. Another indicator is when we talk about wasting, that is weight of that child to the height of that child. In fact, that is what WHO has been using recently, for a long time. And recently, we had already told everybody that they should adopt that even in our hospitals. We refer to it as WHO growth charts. And then when a child is underweight, it can be another indicator. That is, the child's weight will be low for the child's age. And we normally even stress it that mothers should understand these indicators locally. Let us interpret this indicator in our own local language and let the woman take the challenge of following up her own child. It's her child. She will know if it's just the weight for age alone. In Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, let all the women know in all the villages through our radio stations, and let them go to the nearest neighbor who will just take the weight of the child and say, this is what the child is weighing. It is low for the age. Then the child, the mother will cry out and do everything to save the life of that child. By the time we move like that, we are already breaking the evil chain of malnutrition. I've added another name, evil.
Okay, ma.
Thank you. The BMI is another indicator. We can use body mass index for adolescents. Yes, we can use body mass index, and even for the adults. And we have been using BMI too for the elderly, where there is no bent curvature. Where there is bent curvature, we use mid-arm circumference. We can use mid-arm circumference even for children. We can use mid-arm circumference for children too, and even for the women of childbearing age. And for any age group, mid-arm circumference or mid-arm circumference or mid-upper arm circumference. I know some people are not used to the new terms of.
We don't know what mid-arm circumference.
What does that? I was going to ask that I'm lost.
Come show us mid-arm circumference, Prof.
When we talk about mid-upper arm, but you measure from your olecron to the shoulder, and then
I'm demonstrating for you. I think I should be paid.
Yes, at the clinic. Yes, that's good.
Okay, so I'm demonstrating.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, that's it. And then we can have the arm span too. It's another indicator for the elderly. Because at times when you meet an elderly man, you can't say remove your cap. You want to take the height. From my own research, I discovered that full arm span is equivalent to height for the adults. Yes, when you measure from the longest finger on the right to the longest finger on the left, you have a full height, and it's about 85% equivalent to a full height. That has been detected for some countries and even Nigeria. I think I've published that one somewhere too. It's part of my thesis anyway. Thank you.
Wow. So much has been said. So much has been said. We can go on and on and on and on. Prof, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the knowledge that you've shared with us. Doctor, I want to thank you too. Mrs. Josephine.
Thank you, Ma. You're welcome.
Yes, please. Yes, I've been able to gather, talking for myself now, I'm sure some other people are going home with something, that malnutrition stalls growth of any kind, economic growth, even spiritual growth can be stalled by malnutrition. Because if you're hungry, I'm not sure you want to hear the word of God.
Because you won't pray.
If you're hungry, you can't work. In fact, if you're hungry, you just can't be balanced.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So please, would like a parting remark from each of you. I'll start with Prof. And then I'll have Dr. Adeniro come in immediately after her. And last but not the least, Mrs. Josephine.
Okay. Well, I will just want to thank the media craft for the opportunity. Some people will have the resources, they will not direct it in the right direction, and then they will be complaining. So for giving us this opportunity to even speak out is good. And I will also want to make a call for every woman, both at the household, at the individual level, at the community level. It is time for all of us to do what I will tag woman-to-woman training.
Yes, so I'm going to share. I'm going to train all the women, all the chefs in my kitchen.
The village woman, let us come together and kick out malnutrition in our society. We have kicked out polio. Let us kick out malnutrition. It is possible.
We can do it. We can do it together. Thank you, Ma. Thank you. Doctor, please.
Real quick, I'm going to wrap up my closing statement with a few of the questions, no, 2 questions. I'm going to lump them together. And somebody asked the impact of COVID-19 on malnutrition. And somebody also said, we can't solve these problems until we solve food security, and I completely agree. The impact of COVID-19 on malnutrition, we haven't started to see the effects clinically, but what we know is that COVID-19 did affect food security. Lockdown, for instance, affected production of food and moving that to the areas in which they would sell. So I'm going to go again with Mrs. Josephine, and this is one of the reasons why everybody has to be some kind of domestic farmer in their own house. I already plant a lot of vegetables in my own house. When I go to the market, I buy vegetables. I plant them in buckets of sand because I don't have a lot of soil. So in case you think this is one complex, just buy buckets, 200 naira buckets, fill them with sand. And next time you buy your vegetables in the market, scatter the seeds on it. And the rains are even here now. So I think it should be a pride for any household to start to think about how we provide some aspects of feeding for our home. At least on the level of vegetables, which are also green leafy vegetables are an excellent source of protein and fiber. The second thing I want to say, which Prof keyed into and which is I gave her the thumbs up, was when we talk about women-to-women education. Somebody asked that, how do we get that information to women in the rural areas who do not have access to information? I agree. I'm speaking on a computer and I have these fancy headphones, and women in rural areas are unable to access this level of information, and that's true, and we're very aware. And what happens is that when you're engaging stakeholders, you engage the message at different levels. This gathering can be for a certain kind of woman or some certain kind of stakeholders. There is, we have to sustain the movement to continue to craft the messaging that will go to the woman in the rural area. That one too has its own messaging and the way in which we will deliver it. So things like language, we must be able to break down all what we are saying into the various languages, and we must be able to deliver the health information, maybe at the PHC level or in community meetings and all of that. So it is to say that the Protein Challenge is very aware that the Nigerian woman does not look like all the women who are here today. But this is a certain kind of woman, and this is created for that kind of woman. And that the messaging continues for other kind of women. And what we want to see is an engagement of women that look like me and women that don't look like me to do this together. And that's why I give Prof thumbs up. And thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for staying through. And just like Dr. Adeniran said, I was going to say that so many women out there need to hear this. And a lot can be done to take it down to them. And that's what I'm calling on the government and policy makers. Let's go down grassroots. You know, there are so many nutritionists who are passionate about this, who want to tell everybody they know the importance of eating healthy and at little or no cost to you, and how you can make it through just eating adequately okay for you and your family to fight this issue of malnutrition. So we need to go grassroots to tell them in the local areas, tell them how they can process their foods easily, tell them how they can farm, and tell them what is actually important in planning their diets for the home. So it's important. I call on governments and policymakers to take it down just the way, and also to advertise on radio, on TV. You see, radio and TV has gone a long way. This issue of COVID-19 opened my eyes to see that in a day, during the lockdown, even till now, people see, wash your hands, don't touch your face, do this, do that. We get a lot of instruction because we feel COVID-19 is here and will take a lot of lives away if we're not careful. But do you know that malnutrition has done more harm than COVID-19 so far, like ever since? And then we can actually take this word out on the importance of protein consumption and proper nutrition consumption, just like the issue of exclusive breastfeeding was preached and preached and preached, and we began to see improvement. We can also take this to the media and begin to preach and preach and preach, and I'm sure we'll begin to see improvement. And also, I also call on the men and the husbands and, of course, brothers and uncles, assist the women in the home, assist them. If you take up the chores for them to breastfeed adequately, if you get a domestic help for them to go to work and increase your ability to, your purchasing power, ability to purchase healthy foods for you, please do. If you would allow your wives to farm or assist them in farming and all of that, please do. The health of your children is very important because they are the future of tomorrow. And of course, maintaining adequate health is good for you. Don't get to the point where you begin to treat for diseases. Spend that money for the hospital on eating right and eating adequately for yourself so that you prevent those diseases. And of course, you will feel it in your body when you are eating right. You will feel better, and of course, you'll be more productive. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, women of timber and caliber. Thank you for making it worth it this afternoon. Thank you. We do not regret spending this time with you. Thank you so much.
In a short while, I'm going to call on. In a short,
okay.
Lily, let me speak
This is Choma.
No, this is John here. I want to make a few quick comments.
Okay.
Call on Choma to give the vote of thanks.
Okay.
There was a point very robustly made by some of the panelists about the need to spread this campaign beyond just this demographic of women that we have on our extreme afternoon. I want to let you know that this campaign is a broad campaign that's going to run to the end of next year, and there are many facets to it. The webinar is just one of a number of execution pillars that we're using for this campaign. Very soon there'll be a radio campaign that we hope to take around the country. We're also looking at producing posters that will be distributed to all primary health centers, women and mother and child clinics around the country, and those kinds of things. So it's a full campaign and with very many dimensions. And I do hope that as we go along, we can count on you to also be able to join us at different stages during the campaign to contribute your quota towards helping this project of educating Nigerians generally, because I think it's essentially an education challenge to a large extent. If we can bridge the ignorance gap, then as much as we will achieve some results. So thank you for coming. I'll now ask Choma to do her vote of thanks. Thank you very much, everybody. Choma, over to you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. This has been very enlightening. Thank you so much, Mrs. Lillian. Like, I really like the energy, and your smile is so beautiful. So thank you so much for a very beautiful session. Thank you, Prof. You made me realize that malnutrition really is a pandemic, and we need to give it the same energy that we've given to COVID-19 as well. I'm also thinking about getting, because of the doctor, I'm also thinking about getting buckets to actually start planting in my house, because I realized that when she was talking about, let's plant, I'm like, I don't have soil in my house, but now I'm thinking about getting buckets to actually also have my own homegrown plants as well and food to eat. So thank you so much, everyone, all the attendees. Thank you for the questions. You can also get more information from Protein Challenge NG. You can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can also visit our website for much more information. We are going to have more webinars as well that will be this interactive and this enlightening. So just stay tuned and you'll get those emails. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.